Yes, man. Yes, man. Go ahead.
It has been rightly said by Robert Swan, the renowned British historian, explorer, and activist, that the greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. A very good afternoon to everyone present here. I, Manas Sardana, on behalf of Legal Desire, Media and Insights, takes this opportunity to welcome all of you to the virtual conference on Role of Law in Environmental Sustainability, discussing rights of nature and rights to nature. Hope you all are safe and healthy. Environmental degradation is one of the biggest issues faced by the mankind at present. It has also been noted that the earth at present is going through one of the biggest biodiversity loss phase, the impact of which is unforeseen and unpredictable. Increasing population, along with tremendous escalation in anthropogenic activities, has raised several questions on the sustainability of natural resources on our planet. No part of the earth is now untouched by the effect of human activities or pollution. Ever increasing human population and increment in per capita consumption has put great constraint on the natural resources. In addition to this, urbanization, industrialization, and modern agricultural practices have polluted the water resources, air, and soil all around the globe. The natural resources are thus not only being overexploited but also becoming contaminated with toxicating chemicals, making it difficult for the survival of future generations. It has also been reported in United Nations report that the human-caused rate of extinction of species of both plants and animals at present is hundreds of times higher than the natural rate in the past. And as the situation is likely to get more worse, turning it to be thousands of times higher in near future. Along with the extinction of species, we are also facing issues of availability of potable water, pure air to breathe, and ever-increasing problem of land degradation. Climate change is the most urgent issue affecting the whole planet right now. It has been described as the defining human development issue of our generation. Climate change and global poverty must be combated simultaneously. 75% of the world's poor live in rural areas and largely depend on natural resources for their livelihoods and income. They suffer the most from natural disasters due to the poor infrastructure and systems that are not equipped to the deal with the drastic impact of major catastrophes, such as 2014 Kashmir floods disaster, 2004 the Indian Ocean tsunami, 2001 Gujarat earthquake, 2020 cyclone, majorly affecting few cities of West Bengal, and also how can we forget the ongoing floods in Assam and Bihar? It is thus one of the biggest challenges and most important target of the present times, which needs urgent stringent actions and laws to act upon. Environmental sustainability is the key strategy against the backdrop of the growth of human population and repentant exploitation of environment by humans. The underlying concern of modern society is that while today people are enjoying the comforts of economic development, the future generation are on the verge of confronting scarce natural resources and polluted environment, and it is our most important responsibility to leave the planet as sustainable system providing equal opportunities for survival not only to our future generations but also to all other species cohabiting with us. This event aims to discuss the aspect of environmental sustainability and explore the role of laws applicable to fulfill the rights of nature and right to nature. Today, we have with us a renowned panel of experts in this field. I'm sure throughout the conference, you all will have an enriching time of learning. On this note, I would like to invite Mr. Anuj Kumar, founder and editor-in-chief Legal Desire Media and Insights, to introduce the conference.
Thank you, Mannat, for opening note about the conference. And yes, so firstly, I will introduce about the topic. On behalf of Legal Desire and Department of Environment Legal Desire, I welcome you all to this today's virtual conference. It is also a part of our legal knowledge series. And today's topic is role of law in environment sustainability. And then the topic of this conference has been decided by our department to discuss not only the rights of nature, but also to talk about the rights of nature. So all of us know about the right to nature, that our Indian Constitution, Article 48 of also clearly specify that the state shall endeavor to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard the forest and wildlife of the country. And then, in case of Subhash Kumar versus State of Bihar, a right to pollution-free environment was declared to be a part of right to life under Article 21 of the Constitution. So there are various judicial pronouncements on the rights to nature. But now, if we talk about rights of nature, then rights of nature is the recognition and honoring the nature that nature has also right. It is the recognition that our ecosystem, including trees, glaciers, oceans, animals, mountains, have rights just as human beings have rights. And we, the people, have the legal authority and responsibility to enforce these rights on the behalf of ecosystem. The ecosystem itself can be named as the injured party or maybe victim, with its own legal standing rights in cases alleging a rights violation. And in landmark case of Lalit Miglani versus State of Uttarakhand, Honorable Uttarakhand High Court has already declared that legal rights of a person to entire ecosystem. Then Article 51 AG imposes a duty upon every citizen of India to protect and improve the natural environment and confers right to come before the court for appropriate relief. And then, if we talk about global scenario, then New Zealand has passed legislation recently giving legal rights to the river ecosystem there. And then, if we talk about the Ecuador, they had already given legal rights to nature in its constitution adopted in 2008. And then Justice Jeevan Reddy in the landmark judgment of Indian Council for Enviro Legal Action versus Union of India adopted the polluter pays principle. And then we have so many judicial pronouncement which shows that the role of judiciary, like in MC Mehta versus Union of India, discusses the concept of public liability. This case is also known as the oleum leakage case. It is a landmark judgment in which the principle of absolute liability was laid down by the Supreme Court of India. The court held the permission for carrying out any hazardous industries uh, very close to the human habitation and could not be given, and the industry was relocated. Then the Indian legal system is yet to address the loopholes in our environmental law in the state, with an increasing pressure of population, accessibility, and resource consumption. Looking at different areas of environment conservation, protection, and preservation, the law remains an inaccessible space for many till date. So I will end my opening note with this quotation, that sooner or later we will have to recognize that Earth has rights to live without pollution. What mankind must know, it is the human beings cannot live without the Mother Earth, but the planet Earth can live without humans. Over to you, Manna.
Thank you, sir. Our first speaker of the day is Professor Alok Misra. Professor Alok Misra is Professor of Constitutional Law from India. He has teaching, research, administrative, and practicing experience at bar of more than 3 decades. He was the founder and chairman of Human Rights Organization and an associate member, Indian section of Amnesty International London. He is a life member, non-practicing, of Supreme Court Bar Association, Indian Society of International Law, and Indian Law Institute, New Delhi. He has been a member of International Council of Jurists, London. His area of interest is constitutional law. He is a consultant in the field of constitutional law. He is appreciated as a problem solver and a powerful motivator. He has held responsible academic and administrative assignments in institutes of higher education. He has guided doctoral research work in law. He has been awarded the EnviroCare Environmental Award 2016 for his efforts and dedication to the cause of environment. He is also the recipient of Academic Excellence Award 2018 for contribution to legal fraternity. Presently, Professor Misra is serving as Dean, NMIMS Kirit Mehta School of Law and other 6 NMIMS School of Law in 8 Pan-India campuses of NMIMS Dean to be University, Mumbai. It's an honor to have you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Manna. And respected Professor Bharti present in this online conference, uh, senior journalist Basudev Mahapatra, Dr. Paritosh Srivastava, and my very dear Anuj Kumar, in fact, he He has done such a good job. In fact, during last decade, I've been in touch with him. And congratulations to you, Anuj, and your team for organizing this online conference. In fact, the role of law, as you rightly said, with regard to environmental sustainability and right to nature. These have been the concepts which have been talked about, and I have seen the problems and their solutions and how the journey traveled during last 50 years. In the first memory of 1967, I have clearly in my mind with a lot of trees around in the country, but agriculture was very less. So that was the year when my memory started developing, and I saw barren India, hardly any agriculture, but lot of trees and fresh air there. But suddenly, then in 1970, I witnessed that it was green revolution achieving success, and the trees cutting down. The coverage of forests started reducing. I was in the Tarai belt of Uttarakhand at that time in Udham Singh Nagar, Haldwani, Tichar, Richar, Bahedi, that belt. And the way forests were being cut and agriculture got promoted. In fact, that was the point from where we started putting ourselves in problem. So we use the word revolution for a dramatic change. That is unbelievable change if it happens. For example, on a stage, the curtain drops. Oh my God, what a scene like that! What a change like that we react. So similarly, barren India to green India, or to agricultural India, green revolution getting successful. And then while traveling in Uttar Pradesh, I saw there is a city known as Gajraula near Muradabad. Whenever the train used to pass through that, then VAM organic chemicals and others, the plants of pesticides. And then suddenly we find in 84 the tragedy at Bhopal. And I had the opportunity to visit Union Carbide plant from outside, in fact, and also to meet the son of the senior superintendent of Bhopal Junction, who was the last person to die as the officer in charge of Bhopal Junction during that dreadful night after sending his whole staff. So, like that, the things have changed. And I'm very, very respectful towards Mrs. Menka Gandhi, who on every morning on the dining table in India when uh, conferences in Stockholm in 1972 were taking place, and then Kyoto conference, she was fighting on breakfast table with the then Prime Minister that kindly do something for wildlife, for protection of wildlife. And then we find Project Tiger coming, and then Project Elephant, Project Rhino, Project Crocodile, and that's how the efforts started. But in fact, the difficulty is that this is not a problem with India only; it is a global problem, and a lot of sensitization was needed, which we missed, in fact, in our country also, because of probably due to poverty and then the sudden prosperity after Green Revolution we witnessed, and we were thrilled by that. And we couldn't think in terms of, we couldn't go far beyond in our thinking as compared to the world, whereas we had the capacity, in fact, to think like that. We confined ourselves, if we are studying law, only in law subject or in sociology or in history, like that. Multidisciplinarity was lacking. Similarly, liberal arts were lacking, liberal sciences were lacking. The efforts had always been to make the things tough instead of making the things easier. And then the social concerns, the accountability of people, the products who are passing out from the university, the people who are teaching, their accountability was also missing. And environment became suddenly a major issue. We also forgot our ancient traditions, in fact, and knowledge that we respected both flora and fauna in our literature, and Like credits to scientist J.C. Bose, who said that, well, plants also have the life. So we didn't respect that life. We also forgot the doctrines of Jainism. That is even the non-living world, which uh, which is there on this planet, is also very important. And if we degrade that or exploit it indiscriminately, there will be problems. So the multidisciplinarity and all these issues which took place, they started creating a lot of difficulties in the decade of 1980s. And we couldn't think beyond, in fact. We didn't establish that kind of research cells in the country, in the universities at that time, that what is beyond democracy? Shall we stop at that point? What is beyond secularism? What is beyond humanity? What are the issues concerned? What is beyond republicanism? What is beyond separation of powers? What is beyond cooperation of powers? What is beyond judicial review? All those things are still to be researched, because stagnation will not allow us to be the world leaders, and we have to establish the research cells accordingly. So we didn't train ourselves. We started using the goods of prosperity. But recent times, in fact, friends, have have made us to think, and we got an opportunity to get connected with ourselves and with nature too, because the race had been so fast across the globe of development and so-called economic development that we forgot ourselves. We forgot the systems in which we live. We had left nature, say, 5,000 years back in the context of India, and then the social contract philosophy, pactum unionis, pactum subjectionis, systematic agriculture, and that's how we got alienated from the natural systems, a forest, etc., where we were supposed to live, in fact. So all those difficulties have been there. But in India, in fact, the change came from Menka Gandhi and then MC Mehta, in fact, who tried to sensitize people accordingly, and many judges on the bench. They gave wonderful judgment. So we are indebted to the stalwarts like Sundar Lal Bahuguna, Professor Chandi Prasad, MC Mehta, Justice C.P. Jeevan Reddy, and Menka Gandhiji, of course, and many others who supported this cause, who got alarmed by this. And then the environment litigation started, and the series of cases started coming. Environmental lawyering came, and then the various ratios of those judgments, which tried to correct the things, but in fact, how to sustain that, those principles came a bit later. And then multidisciplinarity in education started coming, and like that, things started changing themselves. But during this period, we have seen a change, in fact, how to protect Mother Nature. Like, because I always say that besides improving our immunity, we have to enhance the immunity, protect, preserve, conserve, and enhance the immunity of the whole system, the Mother Nature, the planet Earth. And we have to respect the natural resources which are present, and the life which is there on this earth, very unique in the entire space, so far as the knowledge of the space sciences goes. So, in this context, in fact, uh, the change which has come is based on certain observations and, of course, certain studies which have been done during this period. And it has been found that our support systems, life support systems, in fact, started falling apart, or we felt that they fell apart. Like forests are our life support systems. There is no doubt about it. So the indiscriminate cutting of forests, in fact, uh, had been responsible for what happened recently. Then the greenhouse they absorb millions of trees that we missed, in fact, and the land erosion which they prevent, and then the animal-borne diseases which they prevent to spread. So the way we ruined our forests across the globe, the problems had been there. The major life support systems fell apart. In fact, then forests uh, are places, are homes of 80% of the animals on this earth, and about animals as well as birds. And once we destroy that, then the wildlife comes in danger, like orangutan, like rhinos in Sumatra, like Asian elephants, like large-sized monkeys, and uh, they are facing the problem of extinction, like birds like kiwi across the globe. And then uh, the agriculture, the animal rearing concept, and economy based on that also had been responsible. Then mining had been responsible for ruining these life support systems, and the environmental, the green peripheral environment, green cover, in fact, that also got lost. 46% of the green cover of the earth has got lost. Greenhouse gases, in fact, are responsible. 20% of greenhouse non-absorption of gases is responsible due to the cutting of forests. And then we have to respect our vegetarian concepts and biodiversity to be respected. So this is a major area, in fact. Then we also feel during this period, a research has been done by great British nature conservationists like David Lindo, who in fact got trapped in the lockdown in Spain, and there he found or got opportunity and also saw people uh, uh, in several years watching some birds and birds living in cities, visiting their houses and singing. So the people felt more connected with nature due to this dreadful phase which is going on. And then uh, uh, behavior in the lifestyles of people started coming. But he also mentions that certain people were unaffected by these changes or by lockdown situations. Reason being, the moment the permissions were given to move out on the sea beach, etc., then in London, metric tons of garbage got thrown. People left that garbage on the seashore. So that's how it's the sensitization, it's the education as per the study of David Lindo. Uh, we feel that people may have difficulties, some people who are very affluent, uh, to change themselves. But definitely, uh, people come to a cause which is of higher value. Once you start doing that, then people join you. It's easy, it's not impossible to change the thing, because most of the economies of the world, including India, they are based on government policy. And government policies, if changed, then the nature of economy can be changed towards green economy, and the dangerous present economy may be uh, replaced by more nature concerned efforts, more humane efforts in this direction as a human responsibility towards Mother Nature. So that also is possible, and the great reset which we cause, which we say, in fact, in all these policies, uh, is to take place. That reset is to take place with regard to environmental concerns, and we all have to understand now this thing, that without doing good to the nature, we cannot do good to ourselves. We will have to do good to the nature. We will have to stop the global warming. We will have to stop the emission of dangerous pollutants and gases, greenhouse effect gases. So Miles Richardson from the University of Derby from the Human Sciences Center has also come forward with a recent research where he endorses that efforts can be made in this direction. And the findings are that this has happened because we tried to interfere with the establishments of Mother Nature or the nature as such, and that's how concepts of genetic engineering, etc., are to be utilized with great sensitization and responsibility. And patenting of things may work there to a great extent. And also, human beings are to be made more responsible. Without doing good to nature, nothing can happen. And people should realize that life support systems can also fall apart. And that is what I wanted to say in the beginning. And over to Mana.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a knowledgeable session. As rightly said by you that there and highlighted by you that there is need of revolution from barren land to green India, and which even helped us understanding the situation and the need of environmental sustainability. You even highlighted the changes by Maneka Gandhi, MC Mehta, and various judges who supported this aspect and highlighted the need to sustain the principles and need to protect Mother India and planet Earth and need of supporting the natural resources. As rightly said by you, that without doing good to our nature, we cannot achieve good to ourselves. Thank you, sir, for sparing your time, valuable time with us. Thank you so much, sir. Now, it's time to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Bharti. Dr. Bharti is a professor of law at NMU Delhi. She joined NMU in 2009. She has a long experience of teaching law since 1998. She has been a student of Delhi University and has even taught at the Faculty of Law, DU, before 2009, except for a brief stint at Amity Law School for 6 months. She has been visiting faculty at Indian Law Institute, Institute of Constitutional and Parliamentary Studies, Bureau of Parliamentary Studies, and Training, etc. She has published several articles and made paper presentation on various topics of law. She has coordinated several workshops and seminars at DU and NUD. She is involved as faculty coordinator for legal aid activities at NWD. She has taught across a wide range of subjects. Her areas of interest are constitutional law, environmental law, family law, and criminology. She has done a PhD in alternative dispute resolution with emphasis on Lok Adalats in Delhi. She is the instructor of environmental law course at SWAYAM. It's an honor to have you with us, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Manat, for this introduction. And at the very outset, I'd like to thank the um, uh, Anoj as well as his excellent team. And I would like to express my regards to Dr. Alok Misra, Mr. Basudev Mahapatra, and Dr. Paritosh Srivastava, who are part of this very esteemed panel. Now we are meeting at a point of time when we are absolutely engrossed and embattling the very unprecedented crisis, which is the pandemic COVID-19. And if we look at it's a very debatable topic as to how and why it happened. But undoubtedly, there has been a huge transgression in the biodiverse, sphere, and this there is already the established interlinkage amongst different components of nature. And of course there have been so many factors that have contributed to the present situation. And if we look at climate change itself, which is an ongoing and persistent problem, and which is leading to further the release of virus and bacteria, which may be unprecedented in the future too. There has been the very rampant urbanization and deforestation, which in addition has been contributing factors to the state of situation that we are in today. So this is the present kind of problem that we are facing. Now, when we are looking at law, law is an instrument of change, as we often say. And law has to be sometimes, it is viewed as a proactive instrument of change, which means that it does not have to just wait for things to unfold and to reflect it, and to keep pace with the developments. It has to be ahead, of the situation. When we started at the time of independence, we inherited a set of laws which were basically a colonial legacy. And in the realm of environment, unfortunately, we did not have too many changes that came up, just immediately post independence. There were the basic streamlining in the form of various subject matter in the three lists of the seventh schedule, and which is a union list, state list, and concurrent list. And it was only later in 1972 when the conference at Stockholm took place, and there was the Indian delegation that made a very mighty contribution. Thereafter, we find that there was the 42nd Amendment and the corresponding state of the changes that came to the Indian Constitution by way of Article 48A and 51AG. Of course, apart from this, when we look at law itself, it's a much wider, framework, and it includes the very active pronouncements of the judiciary itself, and the statutory enactments, which came up through the Water Act of 1974, the Air Act of 1981, EPA of 1986, Public Liability Insurance Act of 1991, Forest Conservation Act of 1980, Forest Rights Act of 2006. Now, of course, they were all, if we look at the Indian environmental law, it has a very special kind of relationship with international law. And we find that essentially international law has uh, provided a kind of immediate trigger or a kind of momentum or stimulus to bring about the change in the Indian situation. And it is evidenced by all these laws. And of course, we have a federal scheme, as was emphasized earlier, through the various lists and all that we have. But there are enough in enabling provisions in the Indian Constitution through which the Indian Parliament has a prerogative to also legislate on the state list. And there have been, the state resolutions passed for the Water Act and so on. We have the article which is very important, that in case of international uh, laws, treaties, and so on, the Indian Parliament can give effect to those laws. So this is a kind of a background, and we have, of course, the Indian judiciary, which has contributed immensely to the environmental jurisprudence of the country, and it has innovated through the public interest litigation and the whole, the kind of concepts that have been um brought forward in the form of absolute liability principle or continuing mandamus in the case of Govardhan case for the forest laws of the state of forest affairs in the country, or so the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature, they have the due roles to play out in the context of environment. And there has been a kind of uh, active collaboration, independently. It has been a concerted effort also. And now when we're looking at these two elements, rights of nature and right to nature, this is, it can be brought up in two stages. Right to nature is really the first stage, which is considered to be environmental rights proper. And it is an extension of human rights that we are, aware of and familiar with. So the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that came up in 1948, it did not broach upon environmental rights directly, although right to life, obviously, as has been interpreted in various jurisdictions, including India, it includes the right to a clean and wholesome environment. That has been pronounced actively by the Indian Supreme Court also. This is the substantive aspect of environmental rights that we are aware. There is a procedural dimension also, from which a takeoff from the Aarhus Convention of 1998 becomes relevant. And this procedural dimension relates to public participation, public information. Firstly, that's the first component, the right to information, the right to public participation, and finally, the right to access to justice of the public in case of any grievance and the redressal of the same. So when we look at the Indian scheme of things, there has been a substantive aspect which has come up through the auspices, through the agencies, and through the aegis of the Supreme Court and various high courts. When we look at the procedural part, we find we have the Right to Information Act, which acts as a great supplement to the existing laws. We have access to justice through the Supreme Court and high courts, and also the NGT that has come up in 2010. And we find that apart from this, when we look at public participation, environment impact assessment becomes a relevant notification to look at. And environment impact assessment is really an assessment of any uh, project, the potential, uh, the kind of impact on the environment of a particular project and means of mitigation of the same. Now, here there is the recent 2020 environmental impact, assessment notification that has come about, and that has several features. But what needs to be emphasized about EIA is, and which has to be kept in mind by the policymakers, that if we keep the processes of development as closely aligned to the environment, which is the basic ratio of the sustainable development principle, it is only in that sense that alignment which will guarantee success of the project and which will also guarantee the economic prosperity that we are looking at. Because immediately when we are looking at EIA or the issue of public participation, which comes in through EIA, it is one of the steps, public consultation, and which can be for the immediate locally affected people, which through hearings that are conducted, public hearings, and further through those people who wish to espouse or wish to um, submit any kind of views on the particular project, that can be through a written form. So this aspect is a heart and soul, and the kind of indigenous cultures, and especially the interiors and the hinterland and those areas which are on the borders of forests and so on, and where we are attempting to locate developmental activities, it's very, very important to integrate the local viewpoint. And this is like, it really speaks a lot that sustainability, the environmental sustainability, or even uh, the economic sustainability, and sustainability is a, of an affix or a prefix, which is attached to so many words in today's times. So this is a kind of issue which needs to be addressed, adequately. Now, when we are looking, so I was talking about environmental rights, which is a rights to nature, and this is still the anthropocentric view, right? The anthropocentric view is everything we view from the human lens, that human beings are the primary species, and everything else is subjugated, or it is it is really a lesser set of species that we would say. So I want to make a point here that when we are looking at even the environmental laws in the country, we are just attempting to regulate the environment. So we are not considering the other fellow species, to be at par with us. So if we are looking at, say, the pollution of waters, we are looking at pollution of air. So there is a threshold, there's a standard which we are prescribing. And that standard, if it is not fulfilled, then of course there are certain, some kind of responses, although those responses are not very adequate, and they are not very, it is a very muted reaction, because the institutions that are really looking at this whole aspect, they are either underfunded, understaffed, overworked. So there are so many issues and problems that relate to the institution themselves, who are really empowered to look into whether it's a pollution control boards, and that is really the prime agencies that we're looking at. So this is the aspect of the rights to nature, which are a dimension of human rights, and which have now found their stronghold and the strength in various kind of developments that are taking place. African Chart of Human Rights, 1981, there was a specific mention actually, and of course now we have now transformed to a situation where we are looking at rights of nature. Now, this concept of rights of nature has an ecocentric, kind of basis, which means that the intrinsic value of the different components of nature are at par with the human beings, and there is no such subjugation or no such a lesser kind of situation which is there vis-a-vis them. You find that nature as a legal entity is a concept which has come up, very strongly in recent times, and it's really come up since 1940s, I believe. There are various contributions, and there are various names associated: Thomas Berry, Aldo Leopold, and essentially it means that the nature has certain rights which are akin and similar to human rights themselves. So it is a second stage of progression, that beyond human rights, we look at a situation where all different components of nature are equally respected, and they're equally protected and conserved, and not only for human beings, but per se by themselves. And this is something which has been, it has been promulgated, it has been are as part of our historical indigenous traditions. When we look at civilizations and we look back into the history, it has been the norm across the world and across religions also. If you look at the various tenets of religion, there has been a very broad correspondence with nature. So in 2010, and you find there has been a universal declaration on the rights of Mother Nature, and this was really it was an attempt and a lead given by Bolivia. And apart from Bolivia, there's been Ecuador, there has been New Zealand, as Dr. Alok pointed out. And even in the Indian context, you find that there has been the recent judgment of 2017, in which the Uttarakhand High Court looked into it pronounced that the rivers Ganga and Yamuna are living, entities, and they need preservation and protection uh, by themselves, not only merely because they are lifelines to the civilization, to the Indian, uh, the various cities and peoples that are located on the banks. And they extended the concept of parents patriae, and they appointed loco parentis, and in form of chief secretary of Uttarakhand, the director of the Ganga Namami project, the advocate general. So you have these developments, although unfortunately this case has come in for appeal before the Supreme Court, and there's a stay. So the ultimate, the way it evolves is a little uncertain in the Indian scheme of things, but undoubtedly there is an undercurrent of recognition of rights of nature across legal systems, and even in India, those starting points have been made formally. It is part of the Indian now judicial exposition, although it has always been an undeniable part of the Indian traditions. So when we are looking at the kind of situation that emerges in the present, I may also take you back to one very important case, which is the Sierra Club versus Morton, 1972 US case, in which, of course, it did not really go in favor of the ultimate judgment, did not go in favor of the rights of nature, but there was a dissenting judgment in which the enunciation of the legal rights were clearly made by Justice William Douglas. So this is the really starting point. If anybody wishes to conduct further research, the questions that inevitable questions that come up in the context of rights of nature are that what is exactly, because it is an ecosystem approach that we are espousing, and European Union has been the originator and the harbinger of this ecosystem approach in the context of water issues. Now, of course, the world at large has taken up the ecosystem approach, and the question that really arises is of implementation. That how do you really execute such an approach? who is going to be the guardian of, to speak on behalf of the inanimate, not the inanimate but the voiceless, components of nature, whether it's trees, forests, rivers, wildlife. So who is to be considered as a guardian? So are we going to confine it to government appointees, or are we going to include, say, the forest tribes, the indigenous, the kind of communities? So it is very important to give, further, focus on this area. uh, the other is that what is exactly to be protected, that also is to be, say, kind of looked into. So there is a need for research. Ample research is to be conducted, and here universities and multidisciplinary, institutions, they would play a very crucial role. Indian, national, international, regional. So it's a very collaborative effort that is needed to ponder on these issues and to come up with a, uh, some kind of a clarity. It is also important that education on this aspect of rights of nature and right to nature, this is initiated at a very early beginning, because to have, to speak about it as a formal law and part of formal syllabus is, of course, it is a matter of academic discipline. But we should also try to initiate, these concepts and provide a spark in the minds of every student at the school stage itself. So these concepts have to be brought in a little formally, in the school syllabi and education. So it is essentially, and one more thing, when we are looking at the present pandemic, and I'd like to just, you know, in my viewpoints here, waste issues is going to come up as a huge problem. So we were aiming at ending single plastic use, by 2022, and we would have to, definitely, the timeline is definitely extended now, because plastic is, whether it's in the form of protective gear, or it is in the form of whatever other, units that we are using. It's become a very important part of managing the present crisis too. But how do we dispose of this waste? How do we minimize this waste? That is a very crucial question. So we are grappling with this pandemic right now, and we are hoping that we are able to emerge from it stronger, with a lesson to us that if we, say, interfere with the natural processes, it is going to have uh, a horrendous effect, on the humanity at large, and even the existence of humanity is at stake. So it's not only climate change, as a futuristic, situation that is there, but it is an immediate catastrophe, which we are all facing. So I hope we all take our lessons from here, and we correct ourselves in due course. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You highlighted about the due role of legislative, executive, and judiciary and their independent efforts towards sustainability. You even highlighted that there is a need of research, that who is to be the guardian of the voiceless nature, and how it is important to give further focus to this area and what exactly to be protected. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sparing your valuable time with us. Our next esteemed guest of the day is Mr. Basudev Mahapatra, an independent journalist, editor, and documentarian based out of Bhubaneswar, capital of the eastern India state of Odisha. Basudev Mahapatra specializes in environmental, science, and developmental journalism. He writes on biodiversity, ecosystem services, agriculture, food systems, health, nutrition, and sustainability in the wake of climate change. Working, working independently since September 2015, the last worked as editor-in-chief of India TV news channel Nakshatra News. Before it, He was executive editor of an Odia daily Anubhav and state correspondent for India News Hindi and News X English channels. He is an active member of global professional associations like Society of Environmental Journalists and International Science Writers Association. His works have brought him Nardi Media and Advertising Award for Gender Sensitivity 2017 for Best Gender Sensitive Web Feature in English from Eastern India. Media Excellence Award 2017 as Best Web Journalist of Odisha and Odisha Media Award 2015 for Environmental Reporting. As a journalist and science communication professional, his primary argument is that SDGs on poverty, hunger, health, and education can be overcome and sustainability can be achieved by spreading scientific tempo in the society and dealing with all related issues collectively. It's an honor to have you as with us, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Manat, for the elaborated introduction you gave about me. And I will specially thank Mr. Anuj for involve me in this conference from for bringing in to me to this conference. And my sincere regards to Dr. Alok Misra ji and Dr. Bharti ji and Dr. Paritosh ji for being co-panelists here. And it's an honor actually to be here from. So, this particular subject has enormous importance at this point of time when actually the world is grappling with, a pandemic that has actually taken the world into its own control. Everybody is, inside their homes and no activities taking place. So it's like, that like the world is won by a virus. The virus is ruling over the world. And this particular danger actually where from it came where why this danger came to us when we go deep into this question to find an answer, then we finally see that the environment, the environmental losses, the environmental degradations, and that has happened due to human interference over last centuries has resulted in the pandemic today. And experts are also predicting that such pandemics would be more frequent in future, maybe more stronger also, more critical than today. So at this point of time, discussing about the rights to nature instead of discussing about the rights of nature instead of our right to nature has bear enormous importance, has become more relevant than any time actually. So when actually we talk about environment, I would like to just speak a bit on how the environment works, how nature works, how life systems, how forest ecosystems and nature as a whole operates. So if you look at it, actually man happens to be a part of the nature, maybe one of the species among thousands of species around. Man, human being is just sharing nature with other life systems, other animals, other plants, other ecosystems. So when we talk about nature, human nature relationship, if you see, the first thing is I would like to say is plant, like animal and plant. So man is one of the animals. Plants are there. Plants, give everything to man, like most of the things to man, like it gives oxygen, it gives food through fruits and other things, it gives lots of services like flowering and supporting honeybees, providing honey to man. So food and oxygen, you can say, if they are the major the services provided by the plants, they only thrive on the soil. So the soil is one of the important, very important part of the nature that actually you can say sustains the nature. Plants, animals, everything. It provides food, it provides water, it provides ecosystems, everything, ecosystem services and everything to man. And when we talk about soil, it actually also retains water. So water it provides through rivers. Water flows through rivers. We get water, underground water, through digging wells, ponds, and through these days through tube wells. We extract water from the soil to survive. Then that water actually goes again to the ocean. So ocean actually gives us species nutritional. Ocean is the largest food source for mankind. So ocean, gets water. It remains healthy when it gets sufficient fresh water from the through the rivers, from the run of waters. So when the ocean, remains live, remains healthy, then it, provides us rain. Again, water comes through rain. That goes to soil again. That supports this plant, forest, ecosystem, and humankind. So it actually is. It moves like a circle, and nature operates itself to support the whole system. And when we actually interfere in this system, and we interfere in each and every part of the system, say for example, since actually when man was just a hunter gatherer, after it started agriculture, the primary change was land use change. So we started creating land for agriculture. We started ignoring forest as a part of our life, as an important part of our life, because we depended more on agriculture for our food. So for we our dependency in forest actually gradually came down, and then we started ignoring that, as we didn't remain gatherer primarily, so we ignored the wildlife. So we only use them for our own purpose. We started exploiting them when we are in need, for to fulfill our own needs. We never counted them as part of our life. So with agriculture, developing, and lots of things comes in, and civilization growing, like we went to plain areas, we went to better areas, we created lots of farmlands, then cities came up, and civilization developed. And with development of civilization, this nature get further squeezed. We started cutting forests. We started cutting forests for agricultural land. We started converting plain lands into cities, concretizing cities. We started polluting the air by making industries, by pursuing mining activities to extract minerals for our own use. So we started open cast mining. We changed the land surface, and then again the forests, were destroyed. We destroyed ecosystems. There was a squeeze actually. The natural habitats were squeezed. They were shrinked actually. And then the life system that thrived once in the forest, those ecosystems and natural habitat, they were in danger. They couldn't find enough space to survive. So there the man human animal conflict started. They started encroaching into our land. We have been encroaching into their lands in a very faster pace. So that resulted in man animal conflict. And by mining, by industrialization and everything, we polluted the air. We made the air toxic, though it is the essential thing we need to live, to breathe. We still ignored that, and we made the air toxic. We released lots of effluents to make the water toxic. Not only to make the water toxic, but to pollute the whole food system, to contaminate the plants, to contaminate the foods we get. And we started consuming we are, despite knowing that we are consuming contaminated foods, we are more interested in increasing agricultural products. So we are again applying lots of chemicals to the soil to get more food. So we are contaminating the soil. Then we are again contaminating the groundwater. So whole system we have started contaminating, and it's almost contaminated by now. Everything we eat, the air we breathe, the water we drink, everything is contaminated. We are not getting anything pure today that nature has offered us. So this is the situation now, and this has all happened because of our increasing interference with the nature. And like my previous speakers told, I just noted one or two points. So that is, yeah, the first point I will say about Dr. Alok ji said about green revolution. What did we do by bringing really green revolution to India? Yes, those days actually we had a food scarcity. India needed food to increase its food production, but to what level? To fulfill its needs or to export more? So the fundamental objective is not limited to our requirements. It's beyond our requirements to get more crop yield, to fulfill our needs, and to do business, to earn revenue. And at what cost we achieve that? You see, we contaminated the soil. We made the soil, unfertile. We killed soil fertility. We killed microbes of soil, microbes. And we started applying more and more chemicals to get the yield. By killing the soil, we have been gifted by the nature. By killing the fertility of nature, that itself, the soil itself used to rejuvenate through natural processes. Like there are forests, actually the leaves fall and they decompose to add nutrients to the soil. The soil has lots of microbes. The soil has specific vegetations in specific areas to decompose periodically and to make the soil fertile. Soil has its own insect world to rejuvenate the soil periodically, to make the soil fertile, to make the soil softer. So what we did by applying lots of chemical fertilizers is we destroyed the world of insects that supported the soil fertility. We destroyed the world of microbes that helped the soil to revive, to become fertile periodically. And what we did, is we destroyed the surrounding ecosystems also. When the soil become unfertile, the waters get contaminated, it actually affects the surrounding ecosystems. We destroyed ecosystems. Plants didn't have enough flowering and fruits to support as like before. The ecosystem services actually declined. We didn't get the same support from nature as we used to get for centuries, as our forefathers used to get in centuries. So we hampered the ecosystem services. And when the ecosystem surrounding nature actually is affected, and the soil infertility increased, actually, the contamination of soil expanded. And what happened by that is climate change. When the local climate changed, the local rain patterns changed. Temperature increased, local temperatures. And when this happens, actually, the soil became more drier, and the soil quality went, further downward. And then started the desertification. So now I have seen some places in Odisha's Balangir district, and Western Odisha, in Odisha particularly, is known to, ISRO has also pointed out that Western Odisha is in the process of desertification. It's desertifying faster. So the soil is become like the green surrounding are turning into brown surroundings. When the world is thinking to convert the brown into green, we are converting the green into brown. And this actually, when happens, actually the water retaining capacity of soil decreases. And you must see every river in India, the water flow in every river in India is decreasing. Some of the rivers are in the state of dying. And when the water flow in rivers decreasing by naturally and by man-made efforts like building dams, constructing dams, barrages, and like restricting the water flow in the rivers, then the water flowing into the ocean started decreasing. Today, the sediment flow and water flow to the ocean has decreased a lot. And when that decreases, the accretion of deltas are decreasing. Coastal areas are submerging into sea. Coastal erosion is taking place. And with less of fresh water entering the ocean salinity in different areas is increasing. And many parts of the ocean are, like experiencing a state of hypoxia with very less dissolved oxygen. And warmer water with increased salinity, like usually results in decrease in dissolved oxygen. And we have also there are researches that have found that Indian Ocean is gradually, and Bay of Bengal particularly, and Arabian Sea, parts of Arabian Sea are gradually becoming hypoxia regions. And when ocean, regions of ocean becoming hypoxia regions, those aquatic ecosystems like aquatic animal world, aquatic plant world suffer a lot. And with increasing temperature in the ocean, or with increasing ocean warming, what happens is, like fish growth is restricted, and fishes from warmer region are migrating to colder regions. So we do, like the fish population in some regions are declining. And this fish population, again, like what we see is toxic algae are growing in the warmer oceans. And fishes actually consuming those toxic algae are becoming toxic to humans. We all know that, 3-4 years back, there was ciguatera in Mangalore of Karnataka. Because of consuming some fishes, actually they had taken those toxic algae. They are brought from Kenya and some places of the Indian Ocean, some parts of the Indian Ocean. And they, after consuming that, hundreds of people died in Mangalore and nearby areas, the fishing population. And world over, actually, lots of people are dying because of the such diseases, because of consuming fishes that consume that take those like toxic algae. So what happens is, like, the world is becoming more and more toxic day by day, and the food sources are also, like, getting squeezed. And the whole system is breaking actually. Once, like, the ocean will be polluted, highly saline, maybe, like, after that it will largely, and the pollution and the ecosystem destruction and the increasing temperature, climate change, they have influenced the major source of food production for India and Asian countries, that is the monsoon. So monsoon pattern is changing. The monsoon is largely being affected. When the ocean warming takes place, the monsoon actually is becoming largely affected. And what in return we are getting is more of the cyclones. And now actually in land also, because of the like sea surface temperature is increasing, the land surface temperature is also increasing. Low pressure systems are, like becoming more frequent in land surfaces also. That are attracting low pressure systems or cyclonic storms from the Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea to the Indian coasts. So India is becoming more vulnerable to cyclonic storms. So this is actually we have been doing in the name of development, and we say we are developed, we are more civilized than people living in the forest, like people living, like in outreach areas and living with ecosystem, and we say such people, mostly indigenous community people, as uncivilized people, people who do not know anything. But in fact, if you see, if you compare, actually we have a lot many to learn from them. I frequently visit those places. I frequently meet people from indigenous communities. I study actually their way of life, their way of agriculture, and how they depend on nature. One of the two things actually I collected from there, I will like to cite here, that in their farming, like they have the dongar, they have they do multi-cropping in one particular patch of land. They grow everything, and in one dongar, like the Kand tribal communities, they grow in 2-3 acres of land minimum 60 variety of crops, and up to 100 variety of crops they grow in that particular land over a period of 8-9 months, from upland paddy to millets, leaves, legumes, and tubers. Varieties of things they grow there. And they start the cultivation, they start their farming from April, and they do the harvest up to February, month of February, March. So every time they get their produces from there, they thrive on that. And the major concept that actually these dungers are based on is, they say one dungar supports 10 families, not one family, the cultivator's family. What are those families? If you see that, like it's very interesting. It's not only the cultivator, not only like the community, but it helps the insects thrive on that particular donga, that particular farmland. Then the like from ants to the flies, then the birds, from everything from spiders. So like 10, 13 varieties of things actually come to that, and they all have a share. What the tribal belief is, they all have a share. And that is the reason why they still do not apply chemical fertilizer, because they are, once they apply that, they are going to kill the cohabiting, they are cohabiting animals, cohabiting creatures, or the cohabiting nature, you can say. So they ask, who gave us the power to apply some fertilizer that will kill, like the insects, kill the flies, kill the birds, kill the surrounding ecosystem? We do not have that power. Nature has gifted us everything. They are also gifted by nature. So we need to thrive, and they also need to thrive from there. And that alternatively actually give them a natural system of like pesticide control. When they grow crops, ultimately like automatically insects come, and when the insects come, other like the birds, the like spiders, they come and they like thrive on them. And the pollinators also visit their farm for like bees come for their honey, and they pollinate, they do pollinating works there. So they also provide service, and they get benefits from the land also, from the farmland also. So this is actually the concept of cohabitation, and they protect the forest. It's actually, they do not protect, but they like cohabit the forest also. They do not destroy the forest, because the forest also provides them food. They get lots of nutrients from the forest. So they cannot imagine a life without the forest. Even if someone is not cultivating, not growing anything, he or she gets everything from the forest, from leaves, fruits, honey, and everything, from all food and nutrients he or she gets from the forest itself. So nature actually, like even youth, today's youth also has not been inspired by our concepts, but is following their concept. He said, when you try to put fertilizer, like for higher yield, you are exploiting the nature. You are just killing the nature to make more profit. It's like, like sucking blood from the mother instead of, like consuming milk for mere, for mere benefits or for economic, for, being motivated by our greedy attitude, greedy instinct. So this is how they live actually. They don't. So like why they are forest? They are not custodians. They never think that, and I am very much opposed to that. We should never think to be the guardian of nature. We cannot be the guardian of nature. We have to cohabit with nature. We have to share the earth with nature. It's not like our right to nature, but we have to give equal right to nature. The process, as you mentioned, as Anujji mentioned, as Alokji mentioned, as Bhartiji mentioned, there have been some efforts, but they are not adequate. And don't think nature is dumb. Nature cannot speak. This is a very wrong concept. Everything we are facing today are the voices of nature. Nature speaks to us in its own language. We are facing cyclones. We are because we have destroyed nature, and we like encourage temperature rise. We encourage climate change. We destroyed forest. So nature is speaking in its own languages. Natural disasters happening, nature speaks through that. Desertification is happening, nature speaks through that. And we are still not very much concerned about that. We are still not heeding properly to the way nature is communicating with us. We need to do that, and to do that we need to respect the rights of nature. We are nobody to like give the rights of nature. We just simply need to allow nature to enjoy its own rights. We just need to give space to nature to have its own rights. We have encroached upon its rights. We have encroached upon its rights on a very massive scale. We need to realize our mistake. We need to undo our wrongs. We don't need to like be the guardian of nature, and that will be the biggest wrong if we try to be the guardian of nature. Nature itself is the guardian, so we cannot be guardian of nature. So with this, actually, I will end my what I wanted to say. I just want to say, in the last, that as Bharti and every other speaker actually highlighted by now, we are experiencing what a situation we can face because of degrading nature, because of destroying nature. The pandemic is one of the biggest examples that has taken over the whole mankind. So we need to like save nature. We need to share the earth with nature. We need to respect the rights of the nature, and I think that only can help safety of mankind, and like safety of the whole planet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining the quest and sharing such informative sessions and views on the aspect, especially related to rights of nature and our increasing interference with nature, like our increasing use of chemicals leading to contamination of fertile life. and also how we are hampering the ecosystem services and turning the brown surroundings into green surroundings into brown surroundings, and how the nature is reacting back. Thank you so for sparing your valuable time with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, our last speaker we have today is Dr. Paritosh Srivastava. He is presently working as head and associate professor in Noida International University with over 15-year experience in teaching and industry. He did his postgraduate specialization in environmental engineering and optimization doctorate level. He is actively involved in environmental consultancy and associated with various professional bodies in India and abroad in the field of environment. In the long term, he looks at himself as either doing R&D in some industry or having teaching career. He has realized that a career in this requires a very deep interest in the subject, hard work, and the capacity to think independently and to work as a team. He surely has these qualities and ability to make significant contribution as a researcher or teacher. It's an honor to have you here, sir. Over to you.
So actually, your voice is not audible. Can you?
So there is some technical issue. Can you rejoin once?
Hello, sir. It will be good if you can rejoin the studio. I think that will solve the issue.
So you're not audible. So you can rejoin without earphones. So rejoin the studio once without earphones.
Can you hear us, sir, now? Dr. Paritosh? So we are connecting with sir and we'll try to resolve this issue. Meanwhile, Yes, sir. Are you able to hear us now? So actually, you are not audible. So Mannat, what we can do, we can start the panel session and we'll try to connect with sir.
Okay, sir. Okay, so now it's time to the question and answer panel session. So the first question is, Alok, so the first question is by Neha Doshi. How do we strike a balance between economic development and environment protection? For instance, the coastal zone project.
Yes, Mannat, you can repeat the question to sir.
Okay, sir. So, how do we strike a balance between economic development and environment protection? For instance, the coastal zone project.
Yes, Alok sir.
I couldn't hear Anuj.
Okay.
Now I'm
Mannat,
able to hear.
repeat. Okay.
Okay, sir. So, the question is that how do we strike a balance between economic development and environment protection? For instance, the coastal zone project.
How to balance between economic development and can you repeat it a bit? Last words I couldn't.
Economic development and environment protection. For instance, the coastal zone project.
Yes, in fact, whether it is coastal zone or otherwise, uh, to my mind, economic development should have a reasonable pace. If it goes indiscriminately, then there will be difficulties. Like natural resources are to be tapped to the requirement. In fact, not beyond that. If we go beyond that, there will be difficulties. So, as per need, the things may go, and simultaneous replenishment and efforts to sustain what is there, because it's easy to say that we can plant trees, but the trees we plant are different. The trees which grow in forest in a natural way, they are different. We planted so many eucalyptus trees, but that didn't solve the purpose, whereas natural trees we cut down. So we cannot ordain nature, we cannot be guardian of that. We have to support it, and diversity is to be maintained. With regard to coastal zone, we have to protect the coastal zones, in fact, to the maximum effort, because if they are disturbed, it's a direct threat to marine life. In fact, during Second World War, this type of problem was there. So the oath was taken and law was made that government will not allow oil rigging and the oil platforms near the windmills on the coast. And the moment they went for that, the problem started getting solved, and the jets and the instruments of jets and aeroplanes and many other things which were required at that time, they started getting constructed even from certain places which were not a threat to environment. So law will help in this, education will help, sensitization will help, and also the knowledge that nature also has rights and nature is to be protected and replenished, so that sensitivity will also help. So it's a composite thing. In general, like only to the requirement, and in a very, very guarded way, they should take place. Economic development is not the issue, because we developed a lot during last 30 years, and where we stand now, we can imagine. It's not even 1990. It's much behind that. And I'm a bit skeptical and really worried that can we have that world which it was just prior to lockdown again in the history of humankind. So this is all due to that. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is by Palak Sinha. This is for Bharti ma'am. How to overcome the challenges faced while also moving towards ensuring the rights of nature.
Just say it again, please.
Sure. How to overcome the challenges faced while also moving towards ensuring the rights of nature.
So we are looking at ensuring rights of nature vis-a-vis human beings. Is that the question? Is the question rights of nature vis-a-vis the human rights? Am I getting the question correct? I'm not
Yes,
sure
yes,
whether I heard you correct. Okay. I think it's absolutely right what just said it. Sustainable development, which is the integration of you know the kind of environmental and the economic development, that objective that has come up as a mainstay of progress in today's time. I feel even that it requires a relook, because the model of development that we follow is primarily the GDP model, the gross domestic product, and everything which is a very capitalistic mode of production and further progress. So when we are looking at the environmental rights, which are in relation to human beings, it is just an extension of you know our right to work, our right to livelihood, our right to, so in different spheres, we are only expanding that right to environment. And we are claiming to ourselves, a right to decent, wholesome, clean, healthy environment. When we are talking about rights of nature, that is many steps beyond. It is not only limited to human beings, as a very as we are a very selfish, greedy species, and it is at the cost of others, right? So here we are trying to not accommodate, but we are trying to assure that everyone has, every living organism, every living, every life form has an equal stake, has an equal, place in environment. I actually wanted to ask Mr. Basudev, because you made a point here in your, uh, address. You said that nature is not voiceless. I absolutely agree, sir. Nature is not voiceless, and it has its own lingo, language, lingua franca, as we said. And it has spoken presently also, and we are, we are receptors of it. But I feel that there is a need at the same time for the kind of human species that we are, that we see in front of us, that we observe, that we know, and we are a logical species. Despite that, we overlook nature. So there is still, that need to give voice in that sense, and not any other. So it's not as a guardian. That cannot be, because rather nature is our guardian, not we are a guardian. Nature is our guardian. But there is a need when we have this whole structure of human society, and when we are looking at things which are through laws, through the prism of laws, and through other, associations, institutions, and the way the human setup works, there is definitely need to give voice, at different forums, whether it is the courts, whether it is in parliament, whether it is at the world stage. There is a need for everyone to come up, whether it's NGOs, whether it's youth, whether it is the ordinary man, who's on the street. So everyone, there is a need for everyone to press forward, that we cannot ignore, this situation any longer, because I find many countries, including America, we are rolling back on environmental, the kind of threshold, even the National Environment Protection Act of 1969 of US, there has been an attempt to regress from it. And the principle of environment law essentially is the principle of non-regression. That whatever has been kept as a standard, we must improve upon it and not regress from it. So one thing is there that when you say voiceless, nature is not voiceless. I absolutely agree to what you say. But there is a need to give that human voice to it, so that at least nature we can hear it better. The echoes and the destruction which is there. It is there for everyone to see. Yet we still remain deaf and immune to it. So that's it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, actually, that's 100% right. Actually, nature is speaking to us, but thing is that we need to listen to that. And because like we, as one of the species on the earth, as a part of the nature, as cohabitat, like with the nature, we also need to show our accountability towards the nature, to make a voice, to create a voice for protection of nature, to for like awareness of the whole humanity about the protection of nature. That should be there. And there are also like as we have already increased, we need to, I highlighted that also, that we need to undo the wrongs we have done to the nature, and we need to strengthen the voice for that. Some people say actually we cannot undo our wrongs. Like I recently spoke at a forum. I said, why we can't abandon chemical fertilizer? What's the problem in that? Chemical fertilizers, we can just abandon that. We can stop using chemical fertilizers on the soil, because by applying chemical fertilizers, we are getting better yield, we are getting more crop production. But on the other hand, we are losing a lot in terms of ecosystem services. Trees are seeing stunted growth, forests are seeing stunted growth. So there is not enough fruiting and flowering. The forest is not producing as it should produce. So there we are seeing a great loss also. So once we abandon this ecosystem services also will like improve. The forests and the ecosystems will start producing better, start supporting us better, and we can compensate the loss on the crop from that. So it's not only one crop that can make us survive. We can bring the ecosystem services to that also. If we are getting less of crop yield, we can get more from the forest. We can get more from the ecosystem. We can get more fish. We can get more fruits. We can get more honey. So that can support us also, support the humanity also. But the problem is we are dealing with a single perspective, from a commercial perspective. And this like that's why we go for intensive like intensified farming, intensified agriculture. We are like defocused from diversification, crop diversification, like food diversification, service diversification. Not only from the farm field we will get enough of single crop, we will get other crops from the forest also, from one ecosystem also we will get. So that diversity, once we start respecting diversity, once we start allowing the nature to enjoy its own right, when we start respecting the rights of the nature, I think that will be the best act from us. That will be a best display of our accountability towards the nature. I don't know if it fulfilled actually Dr. Bharti's.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, Manan.
Yeah, okay.
So, next question is, environmental laws in India is deviating from sustainable development principles. How can balance be achieved between the development and right to nature? This question is by Advocate Pooja Fulari.
So, who would you like to, whom amongst us should answer this?
Uh, Anyone can answer, sir, ma'am.
Okay,
So
Dr.
I
Alok ji, agar, if you can, give the legal aspect of that, I maybe, like give a small narrative on that also. So, Dr. Alok ji,
Kindly repeated, the voice was a bit feeble.
okay, okay.
Environmental laws in India is deviating from the sustainable development principles. How can balance be achieved between the development and right to nature?
Yes, in fact, in the in the annals of Indian literature and culture, this was not there. It was very much present, in fact. But what happened in post-constitutional era, when we went all scientific, all industrial, um, all one-sided, in fact, lopsided, uh, the problem emanated from there. In fact, it's not deviating from sustainable development. In fact, there is hardly any concept of sustainable development in the existing laws. And gradually it is being brought into that. The laws are required to be modified. The whole orientation has to take place in the right direction. When I mentioned green revolution, in fact, the idea was the same. That instead of fertilizers, we can go replenishing manures, etc., and sustain the nature like that. We can also go like we are such a huge population, second largest country in the world. We instead of though we launched the largest family planning program in Asia way back in 1952 by Nehru government, but it was made voluntary. So in the natural system, human beings are not supposed to be in that much number, and there should be a balance between the number of species existing on this earth. The balance is provided from the side of nature, that is to be studied. Of course, I do not support the law of jungle, I support rule of law. And from the point of view of legal perspective, in fact, law or rule of law, or but law should not go one sided in the penal way. It should be based on quantified data and research, in fact, done by environmentalists and NGOs and all instrumentalities. And on the basis of that, law can be the guardian of nature. If law becomes that much advanced or enriched by multidisciplinarity, not exactly an individual. So, sustainable development concept, which is the remedy to a great extent, is to be brought into the spirit of law. The spirit of law has to imbibe it. That's what I have to say on. Over to Manu.
Thank you, sir. Uh, so the next question is it okay to cut trees in name of development? In Array last year, more than 2,400 trees were cut for Metro Phase 3. Now, a committee appointed by the Chief Minister recommended lifting of stay on construction. What are your views on that?
Yes, in fact, it was a problem related to Bombay, and it's a problem all across the world. And here, in fact, right to development comes into conflict. But again, the solution is instead of going one sided or lopsided, a balance is to be struck between different rights, between rights of human beings of development and between rights of nature or duties of human beings towards nature. So this is to be looked into, but in fact, the environmental diversity or biospherical diversity is to be kept in mind. First, it should be seen what were the trees in that area, whether they were neem trees, peepal trees, shisham trees, what type of trees we cut, how old they were, what is the ecology of that area, what were the animals, etc., dependent on them or insects dependent on them. A thorough research can be done. After that, to the minimum number that can be done But again, you see in Bombay and Pune, I have seen the culture that they don't allow the tree to be cut. And that's something very great. In fact, you will find trees in Bombay even in between the road. So that's how they don't allow. And these kind of solutions, like human beings, if they can invent so many things, so many scientific inventions, why they can't change the course of metro or something like that to protect the trees? That is also a requirement.
Yeah. Also,
Over to
I
you.
would like to. I would also like to speak a bit about like bit on this. This is actually a bigger problem. Last year also in Odisha, in Talavera forest, for an open cast mining, they cut, within 2 3 days, they got 40,000 trees. All, like very old trees from a natural forest. So the thing is actually why we allow such, like projects come to places where there are natural regenerative forests are there and old forests are natural forests are there is because we do not actually evaluate the value of ecosystem services. We have even environmental impact assessment. We just value a tree, but we never value what the tree produces, how much the tree produces, how many people it supports, how many birds or other things it supports. We never take these things into consideration. So ecosystem services is completely ignored in our environmental impact assessment process. And then the other thing is that we never do the study actually how much loss it will cause. Like one more thing is like the forests actually produce oxygen, they are carbon sinks. So we need to take into consideration that also how much carbon it has captured, how much oxygen it produces. So that also is taken into consideration. And the third thing is we cut the forest, natural forest, a forest as much as whenever, like 200, 300 years old forest, and we start talking about plantation. So once we are planning a project, before that, why don't we locate some place and start plantation before we cut the forest? And the species we should select actually which are endemic to the particular area, which are indigenous species, tree species. So we should do that. Instead, we actually first cut the forest, start our project, and then start plantation. Maybe not immediately, like gradually we start plantation. So that service replacement, there is a huge gap of time in between. So that has to be minimized. We have to show it in action. We have to create a forest like atmosphere before we cut a forest. We have to choose a place, we have to start plantation there, we have to choose species which are endemic to that particular place, and then we can show this is the forest we are going to create, we have started creating. But that's not happening. And then whatever the like plantation projects are taking place is all like monoculture plantation and commercial monoculture again. Like we plant eucalyptus, we plant teak, which are not suitable to our land, our soil. It's already proved that these species are very much detrimental to local biodiversity. So we have to respect that local biodiversity. So once we do that, maybe we can win over people to start projects, like in areas where, like with rich forests.
I just like to add, here that there are concepts like NPV, which is the net present value, which has come up through the under the Bodhvarman case, and so there are certain concepts which may help and aid, what Sir is just mentioning as to the actual value of the forest. Other than that, there is a very interesting statistic that around 35% of the cases before NGT relate to environmental clearances. So that is an issue. I mean, it just shows that this whole idea of trying to attain that balance between environment and economic development, it is so important and significant, and it is coming up before the judicial forums in a very massive manner. The third thing I'd like to say is it's a very recent occurrence that happened in Maharashtra's Sangli area. I think it's Ratnagiri Sholapur highway, where the National Highway Authority, it was trying to construct a highway, and there was a 400-year-old banyan tree. And this project was, there was a lot of anguish of the local people, and many people came up, in outrage against this kind of cutting of the tree. And I think the local administration has abandoned this, it is trying to protect the tree now which is coming in the way. So I think people's role, citizen role, individual's role, that people are coming together, that's absolutely an imperative, in the context of environment. So whether it's the Vishnu Andolan that started, early on in India, and even this, and it was very touching. This 400-year-old banyan tree is very similar to that. The people just clung to the trees and they just wanted to protect it. So people's participation has is central, to the whole context of environment.
Thank you so much, thank you, ma'am. The next question is by Palak Sinha. How can the efforts to protect the environment be developed further?
You have to possibly, probably, Manat, name the person who should respond because we don't know, who you're asking for. Like, who should
Ma'am, ma'am,
respond?
it's a common question for seeking suggestions from all of the panel, from the whole panel.
Yeah. Can you please repeat the question?
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
The question is, how can the efforts to protect the environment be developed further?
Yeah, it's primarily, awareness, education. So we need people to realize the importance of environment, importance of nature for their own lives, and how nature is supportive of them. Actually, nature supports their life. So we need to educate people about the importance of nature, and that only can take it further. Unless we make people educated, unless make people aware about the importance of nature, we, because it's not any single one's job, and it's everyone's job actually. So every single man should consider the importance of nature, and every single man should act to protect the nature, to protect the environment, to make the environment better for people. So unless that education comes in, among people, comes in the communities, it's very difficult to take it further actually.
And apart from what Sir said, I feel that it's very important to have a multidisciplinary approach, because the environment is not, you can't really put it in a box of legal domain, or there's so much attached to it. There's a social, cultural, political, economic, psychological. So there are these various things that have to come together in confluence. They have to be synergized, and that is how a very holistic perspective has to emerge. Apart from that, I would also say that there is a need to come up with alternative models of economic development. Because like which has been emphasized by Dr. Alok as well as Dr. Basudev, that when we're looking at increasing agricultural production, so is it like chemical fertilizers that we have to go for? So is it like we can look for alternative organic manures? So there have to be these alternative models that have to be brought up in a very uh, strong manner before the community, which will show the cost effectiveness, which will show the productive efficiency, which will show the marketability. So all those features which are very uh, attractive to the human, the kind of the species that exists. So you are trying to cater to all the requirements aspects, but in a manner which is at least as a first step, you are aligning yourself with environment to some extent. Right. Rights of nature is a much vast and a much more difficult step to achieve. So those first step, baby steps have been taken. But at least we must ensure that we do not degrade the environment anymore. You know, so yeah.
In fact, uh, as rightly said by both the learned speakers just now, Mr. Mahapatra and Professor Bharti, we have to survey, in fact, uh, the the trees and the shrubs and wildlife which is native of India, in fact, and how productive they are for us. Like as I mentioned uh, in the beginning, that forests are life support systems. In fact, they are huge ventilators. So we had been worshipping trees like people since ages. Ficus religiosa is the botanical name of people. So since Indus Valley civilization, we had been worshipping such trees. So respect for uh, flora as well as fauna, for wildlife through various stories, and as rightly said by Professor Bharti, that in a holistic multidisciplinary approach, because law will require a lot of support of environmental sciences and environment technology, like science in application technology. So various disciplines, then sociology, then anthropology, but botany, ecology, so many disciplines, and then tuning all that diversity of knowledge, and a common action plan can be there. And first thing which has been rightly said, that further degradation should stop, and protection must be there, and then we can research and replenish the things as soon as possible, as fast as we possible. We only have that much rights which as a human species we should have. There are other species also, and there are issues related to animal rights also. So, in that one, thank you.
One more point
Thank you,
I would like
sir.
to add that there is also a need to use the science and technology, the existing scientific knowledge and technology. For instance, when we talk about satellite imaging, we can easily have those imagery of the existing resources, as Sir just pointed out, that when we talk about wildlife or we talk about any particular species of forest, plants, because this is also very important. This data bank when we create it, it's very important as a reference point from the point of view of environment impact assessment. So whatever the project proponent is describing, there is a need to cross check it also. Whatever he is professing in that environment impact statement, there is presently only an option for the pollution control board to visit that location, in the processes that are involved for evaluation. So there is, if you have a ready data bank and if you can easily cross-check at least the way whatever he's saying, whether it is existing or not, then we can talk about mitigation, then we can talk about other aspects. So scientific knowledge and technology must be used, in a more effective manner.
Absolutely. In fact, Remote Sensing Application Center Bhopal, when the first PhD in remote sensing from Canada came here, and then he was a geologist. So a team of geologists, in fact, through remote sensing and satellite imagery in 1984, surveyed the entire forest belt of Bhopal. And certainly, you see, it was a mission given by the then Prime Minister, and then further extended by Rajiv ji. And then lot of things like the records were differing from the satellite imaging. Uh, the whole forest belt was not non-existent. In fact, it was already manipulated. It was all barren trees had already been cut, and whereas this got revealed through remote sensing. So there was a big scam, and then government requested the scientists that kindly hold on and we will do the needful like that. So absolutely, madam, like remote sensing and satellite imagery can help a lot in this. And now, fortunately, we have remote sensing application center in at least 11 states in India. So more developments in this regard will help us. Manna.
Thank you so much, sir.
Before one concludes, so I will say that in the conclusion of this sessions, all the sessions, that if we come to the conclusion from where we started about discussing the right of nature and right to nature, so yes, we can conclude that nature should have also right as an integral part of the survival of its own, the planet and the people living in it. And currently, the environmental battles that are here, so which are even fought on case to case basis with individuals and organizations lining up with a specific cause. So we need to have some, rather than going for this specific causes, we should also recognize that we should pursue the bigger aim of the protecting an ecosystem as a whole for now and as future.
Thanks, sir. With this, I would like to conclude by citing the famous saying of the Dalai Lama: as people alive today, we must consider future generations. A clean environment is a human right like any other. It is therefore part of our responsibility towards others to ensure that the world we pass on is as healthy, if not healthier, than we found it. Hence, it is our collective and individual responsibility to preserve and tend to the environment in which we all live. We don't have to engage in grand, heroic action to participate in change. Small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can transform the world into a better place. I would now like to invite the convener, Ms. Snow Tandon, Executive Assistant, Department of Environmental Law, Legal Design, Media and Insights for vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, all. It's my pleasure to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on the behalf of Department of Environmental Law, Legal Design, would like to extend a very hearty vote of thanks to the honorable speakers who blessed us with their presence and took out valuable time from their busy schedules for enlightening us with precious knowledge in the field of environmental law. I'm sure everyone has gained a lot of knowledge from these experts. The aim of this virtual conference was to create awareness amongst lawyers, law students, generally on the topic role of law in environmental sustainability, describing right to nature and rights of nature. Thanks to our experts, because of whom we have fulfilled our objective. They explained the concept so beautifully that everyone now have knowledge about this topic as protecting rights of nature is the key to balance the ecosystem and environmental sustainability, a possible way to protect the Mother Earth. As no conference can be successful by a single person, so I would like to extend my special thanks to Anup sir, Apurva ma'am, and Legal Desire, including Manat, Manav, Ayushi, Swati, Akansha. This virtual conference would not have been so successful without the efforts of you. I would also like to thank our sponsors, Bioforensic Research Center, Tax Assurance Digital School of Law, and GTN Arts for the support. Last but not the least, I would like to thank our viewers for participating in this. I'm sure you have all learned something new from this insightful virtual summit. We all, our legal desire, always try to explore the unexplored topics of law so that the viewers can learn new things daily. So do subscribe to our YouTube channel, Policy, Public and Policy TV for more knowledgeable questions. Stay safe and follow all the guidelines of the government so that we can fight against coronavirus. Thank you.
Thank you
So
so
with,
much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
so with this
Thank you.
note, yeah. Yes.
And thanks to my co-panelists also, Dr. Alok, Misra, Dr. Basudev. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will be
Thank you, madam.
recording this conference with the video with the message.